Hey everyone, welcome to the video. This one we're going over the 4-game NBA slate for tonight on Draftkings. And yes, it is a pretty small slate tonight, but I also think it's a pretty solid slate. We got a good Houston versus Toronto game, a fun Philly versus Washington game, and then the Denver-New York game's kind of the gross one of this slate. But then at 8 o'clock, we got the Phoenix versus New Orleans game, which should be pretty high scoring. So I actually am looking forward to this slate. Don't think it's a stay away by any means. But before we continue, if you guys could leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, please hit that subscribe button. Really helps me out, really appreciate it. You can also follow me on Twitter at ChrisPennell16. And like always, if you're interested in the spreadsheet I build every single night for the NBA season, my projections, cheat sheet, defense versus position chart, and my Discord. Links below in the description below for my Patreon. And it's the beginning of the month, so it is the best time to sign up. And without further ado, I say we get right in to the breakdown. So we're going to talk about the guys I have some interest in as of right now. Now, do I have a lot of interest in James Harden? I wouldn't say I have a lot of interest, but I do think I have to talk about him. I mean, he's by far the highest ceiling play in the NBA pretty much, him and Luka. And on a smaller slate, you usually want the guy that can score the most points, but man, is he expensive relative to the field. What's Embiid? Embiid's 9,700, then the next most expensive guy is James Harden, which is like 2,300 more expensive than the rest of the field. So I don't think you have to play him just because of how expensive he is. If there's some really obvious value that would happen to open up throughout the day and you can easily fit in James Harden, yeah, I'd say go for it. But as of right now, I'm not totally sure if he'll make my main lineup, but he can explode any single night. I mean, if you just look at his past 4 games, or really just the past 2 games, 78 points, 85 points, has scored 110 real-life points. And like I say, he did play 49 minutes in the last game versus San Antonio because of double overtime, but still, it all counts the same. Still at 78 fantasy points. The guy's been a monster, we know that, and he's getting near 40% usage rate this year, 38 minutes per game, elite 1.7 points per minute. He's going to shoot 1 million free throws every single night, so you got that floor as well. If you look at his last game, he had 24 free throw attempts, hit all 24 though. That's the thing about James Harden. You're getting free points every time he goes to that free throw line. 20 for 23, 9 for 10, 8 for 10. Those are low games, but yeah, the guy's a free throw monster. He's going to draw the fouls. He's going to, blaze threes. If he's hitting his threes, it's pretty much game over. So only 4 for 20 from the field last time from the 3-point range, but then 8 for 14. But yeah, James Harden, if you can afford him, yeah, he's definitely a good play. I think he'll be a little bit lower owned considering I think everyone's going to go down to Embiid and some of the other mid-range guys, which I'm probably going to do that anyway. But maybe he's a GPP pivot if you could find a way to fit James Harden and hope he has a really high ceiling game, and then some of the other chalk 8 to 9K guys bust. Yeah, you're going to be looking pretty good in tournaments, but I'm not sure if I'd get there in cash games. And I know Toronto's perceived as a pretty good defense, especially from last year, but they're actually 18th versus shooting guards, and they're more middle of the pack when it comes to total defense. So James Harden, I guess he's on your GPP radar, but I'm probably not going to get there in cash games as of right now just because of the price tag. But Joel Embiid, I would say he's my favorite spend up of the slate. He's at 9,700, and I just love using anyone versus Washington, especially the big men. And that's what Joel Embiid is. They're ranked 29th versus centers and are the worst defensive unit for fantasy points given up. And this is a pace-up spot for Philadelphia as well, as Washington is 4th in pace-up play, while Philly is 14th. So I love getting guys in pace-up spots. And the Sixers have a 121-point implied team total, which is the highest on the slate, 1.52 points per minute, and a 31% usage rate. I think we're in for a pretty good game before the last game versus Utah, which was a tough matchup. 3 straight 50-point games in a row, 59, 57, 58. I think 9,700 versus Washington. I don't see why we wouldn't play him here. So definitely like Joel Embiid. I believe he was like 25% owned versus Utah as well, which honestly didn't make too much sense to me. So versus Washington at 9,700, I have to assume he's going to be very chalky tonight. I'm definitely going to want to put him in my lineup. So Joel Embiid, probably where I'm starting my lineup building process tonight. Bradley Beal on the other side of this game, I don't think he's a terrible option. And if you're playing Embiid, you're probably hoping this game stays pretty close, so why not run it back with Beal? With no Thomas Bryant on the court, his usage bumps over 4%. It's not a huge sample size, but still over a 4% bump in usage rate to a 38% usage rate, and a very nice 1.6 points per minute. He's going to have to be the main producer here, and he dropped 57 points in the last game versus Orlando, which is a tougher matchup, and 42 real-life points as well in 42 minutes. So he's gonna have to play a lot of minutes. He's gonna have to shoot the ball a ton, which totally fine for me for fantasy purposes. He had 30 field goal attempts last game. Now this is an awful matchup as Philly ranks the best defensive team just in general for points given up, and they're actually first versus point guards and shooting guards. But Beal is cheap enough at 8,700 to where I have interest. And Orlando was a tough matchup too, not nearly as tough as Philadelphia, but still a tougher matchup. I think they're like 11th versus shooting guards, so I think Bradley Beal will be fine here. It's going to be the main producer, so Bradley Beal definitely on my radar. And then just scrolling down a little bit. Jokic, he's cheap, but the guy's been just so sloppy this year. His recent stretch of games have been pretty rough. Siakam's going to take a usage hit with Kyle Lowry being back. Still a solid game. I think it's going to be a solid game for Toronto just for all the fantasy purposes, but I just have some other guys I have interest in. Brandon Ingram, he's at 8,200, and I like this spot for him. I definitely want exposure to the late game. I say it like that because it's only at 8 o'clock, but the other games are at 7 and 7:30. So this is the late night hammer. We have a 235-point team over-under for this game, which is highest on the slate, and a tight 3.5-point spread. So should be played pretty fast as well. Both teams are top 11 in pace of play. New Orleans plays faster between the two, but still are both playing pretty fast this year. And they're not the best defensive teams, especially New Orleans, where New Orleans is obviously awful on defense. Phoenix is more not middle of the pack, but just a little worse than middle of the pack. And yeah, he's going to take a slight hit with Lonzo Ball being back, but he just shot 47 points in the last game with Lonzo. So I really don't have any concerns about that. And he's been solid all year. You're probably going to get 40-plus points out of him. He's been at 1.3 points per minute with a 29% usage rate. I think Brandon Ingram's a pretty safe cash game play. He's going to get assists. He's going to get rebounds. He's going to score probably over 20 real-life points. So yes, Brandon Ingram, I think he's a solid play. He's going to see big minutes, 40, 36, 40, 37. Nothing really not to like here, maybe besides the price tag, but I still think he's fine. Ben Simmons at 8K. I'm pretty sure I have a rule written down somewhere over here that he's a guy I should never play because he screws me every single time I play this guy. Every single time. But he's been hot the past two games. 44 points at 52 points, 14 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists, 15 points, 13 assists, 6 rebounds, 4 steals in the past two games. He's been racking up the steals, which I do like. And this is obviously an elite matchup, like I said it was for Embiid. They're just so bad defensively, and they play very fast. And even the slow Orlando Magic team put up near 130 points versus this Washington squad. So it would never surprise me if someone puts up 140 points versus Washington. They are 26th versus point guards, 30th versus shooting guards, middle of the pack versus small forwards, whatever you want to call Ben Simmons. Now, his numbers aren't going to wow you. He only has 1.1 points per minute and a 19% usage rate, but he's still decent play here, and the matchup does draw me in. So Ben Simmons definitely on my radar. He has been playing better as of late. Then Devin Booker, just exposure to this New Orleans and Phoenix game. He's another guy who screws me a lot. I hate playing this guy, and he's been pretty sucky the past 3 games. He's always a hit or miss guy. If he's hot from 3 or if he's just hitting shots in general, yeah, it's going to be a good play. But this guy just loves to screw me over. But it is New Orleans. They play fast. This game is the highest total on the slate, and New Orleans is 21st versus shooting guards and also dead last versus point guards. So again, like Simmons, numbers won't wow you. It's actually pretty similar numbers for their point per minute, 1.1 points per minute. He does have a 28% usage rate, which is much higher than Ben Simmons. But I think Devin Booker is a fine play versus New Orleans. I could see this being one of his 45-plus point games instead of the 28 to 35 point range. So Devin Booker is in play, but just know the guy loves to suck for me. Jrue Holiday, again, just more exposure to this game. I just like all these mid-range pieces. There's a lot of good mid-range pieces in this game. Ingram, Holiday, Devin Booker, probably another guy I'm forgetting about, but he plays big minutes. He's solid. Now, if he's gonna get you 30, if he's gonna be in that 30-point range at 7,300, you're not excited about it, but it doesn't kill you. But definitely would be disappointed. But he's got big upside. We saw versus the Lakers, he had 60 DraftKings points, then 32, 53, 47, 42, 47. Now, obviously, guys were out during these games, so it's a little elevated. But I still think Jrue Holiday is a pretty solid play, especially at 7,300. The price is down. We saw it at 7,700, 81, 78, 81, 79, 82, 88 at one point. So the price is down, and it makes him a nice, just solid cash game play at 7,300. Because I do like exposure to that game. But I do like Kyle Lowry a lot in this game. So he's at 7K. And I think he's one of the better plays on this slate. In his first game back in like a month, he had 41 minutes, 41 points, so right on a point per minute. And he was 7,900, had 12 points, 11 assists, and 6 rebounds. And I'm not really concerned about him playing 41 minutes in his first game back, and it's being a back-to-back, considering it was a thumb injury, not a leg injury. So I think he'll be fine. I don't think he got to rest his thumb. They also dropped his price at $900 for some reason. He was 7,900, and then they just dropped him off nearly $1,000 and salary at 7K. That doesn't make too much sense to me, but I'm not really going to complain here. He still had 41 points despite going 0 for 11 from 3. The guy went 0 for 11 from 3. He was 2 for 18 from the field. I mean, that is absolutely terrible. If you're telling me a guy's going 0 for 11 from 3 and 2 for 18 from the field and he's still scoring 41 fantasy points, I'd say that's pretty solid, because I'm going to have to assume he's going to shoot better than that on most nights. And I know maybe the thumb injury maybe maybe that was one of the reasons why he couldn't shoot so well, but still. And they dropped his price as well. And, typically he's going to, make his threes a lot better than that. I mean, 40%, 71%, 55%, 33%, 27%, 33%, 60% from three. He's going to be fine, and he's going to play big minutes, and, that Toronto rotation's pretty tight. And this is a fast-paced matchup versus Houston, who is playing the fastest pace of playing the NBA right now, and Toronto doesn't play slow either. They're 13th. So I do like the matchup here. And as a whole, Houston is awful defensively, but they actually rank second versus point guards. But I will look past that, and I think Kyle Lowry is definitely a solid play. I think he can get you 40-plus points here. Even if he doesn't, 35-plus points would be just fine at 7K. So Kyle Lowry definitely going to be... I think he's pretty close to being a core play for me at that price tag. Fred VanVleet, he'd be fine. Obviously takes a big hit with Kyle Lowry being back, but at 6,600, they did drop his price, and he's been solid all season. I don't think he's going to put up 40-plus points, although it was versus... Was it the first game of the year? I can't remember, but he had a huge game with Kyle Lowry, but yeah, it was the first game of the year. I think he dropped like nearly 60 points, but Fred VanVleet, he's going to be fine. They dropped his price. He was in that mid to 7K to even 8K at one point. So 6,600, the price dump off, and it's a good matchup versus Houston. So don't mind Fred VanVleet. And again, you can just play pretty much all three of these guys, just as solid cash game plays. VanVleet, Harris, and Horford. Harris and Horford is just getting exposure to Philly, going up against Washington. You know what you're going to get out of these guys. Both these guys are probably going to score like 35 points with the upset of 40. Tobias Harris, 42, 31, 32, 27, 29, 36, 46, 26, 47. You're pretty much going to get, I'd probably project him for anywhere from 30 to 35 points with the upside of more. He's going to play 30-plus minutes. It's a great matchup versus Washington. So definitely just a mid-range cash play if you have that salary remaining. Same for Al Horford. He's only 100 cheaper. And again, you're probably going to get 30 to 35 points with him with the upside of more. He's going to play 30-plus minutes. Not the most exciting plays in the world, but they're decently cheap going up against Washington, so you're definitely going to be in play. He does pretty much a little bit of everything: assists, rebounds, blocks, steals, points. So Al Horford, definitely a solid play. Ricky Rubio, again, you can play him as well. He's 6,200 going up against New Orleans, who is dead last versus point guards this year, so definitely in play. Now, 23, 39, 37, 24. Then, he was hurt, but I think Ricky Rubio is a solid play at 6,200. Not overly expensive. His price did drop, so I think he'd be a solid cash game play just because New Orleans is dead last versus point guards. And then scrolling down, there's not a lot more I like. And I really don't see an obvious pump play, so hopefully some things open up. And that's kind of why I'm leaning towards not playing Harden, because then I could just go more of a balanced approach and just make Embiid my spend up, and then get a lot of these 5 to 7K players. So I don't mind going with Derek Favors if he is back. Now, he is questionable, so we'll see if he plays or not. I'm not sure if he is. He was dealing with the death of his mother, so totally understand why he's missing games here. But before not playing for a while, he was pretty solid. 52 points, 41, 32, and after that. But that was with the minutes drop off. When he was playing big minutes, he was looking pretty good. And he's actually a really good matchup versus Phoenix if he does end up playing. They are 25th versus centers. That's their big soft spot on the defense. He's been over a point per minute this year with 1.13 points per minute. So Derek Favors, he is on my radar as long as he's good to go. Only 5,200. I think it's a pretty solid play if given the go. Should see close to 30 minutes. So Derek Favors definitely on my radar. Just remember to monitor that status. And hopefully some more value opens up because I'm not really seeing a lot. So as of right now, I'm probably thinking of a balanced approach. But again, things can change throughout lock. And if you would like my final updated info all the way up to lock, my projections, cheat sheet, all that good stuff, or my Discord where I'll just talk to you pretty much all day. Links in the description below for my Patreon. And that's going to be it for this video. I wish you guys the best of luck and have a great Thursday. And if you're watching NFL or playing NFL, check out the NFL video as well. And also my core plays video will be out on Friday. All right, see you guys in the next video and wish you guys the best of luck.